In an industry where every major brand has been bought, merged, stripped, or sold to a conglomerate, one company has never changed hands. Not once. Not in 111 years. Makita is the last major independent power tool manufacturer on Earth with genuine global scale. Annual revenue exceeds $5 billion. Manufacturing plants in 14 countries. Products sold in over 50 nations. The company is publicly listed on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. It is not owned by a private equity firm. It is not a subsidiary of a holding company. It has never been acquired. It has never been merged. It has never been leveraged, restructured, or flipped. And the most remarkable part is not the size of the company. It is that Makita spent the first 43 years of its existence not building a single tool. It was a repair shop. And that repair shop is the reason everything else worked. To understand Makita, you have to start in a Japan that most people alive today cannot imagine. The year is 1915. Electricity is still a luxury. In the cities, a handful of factories run on imported European generators. In the towns, kerosene lamps light the streets. In the countryside, nothing has changed in centuries. Wires are being strung. Power stations are being built. But the infrastructure is fragile. Motors burn out. Transformers fail. Lighting equipment breaks down within months of installation. The machines arrive from abroad, and when they stop working, there is almost no one in Japan who can fix them. Mosaburo Makita is born in 1893 in Aichi Prefecture, on the central coast of Honshu. His family are timber merchants. He is not an inventor. He is not a theorist. He is a young man with an aptitude for electrical engineering and a very clear understanding of what is missing. In March 1915, at 21 years old, Mosaburo Makita establishes Makita Electric Works as a sole proprietorship in Nagoya. He does not build power tools. He does not manufacture anything. He sells and repairs lighting equipment, electric motors, and transformers. He has one co-worker, a 17-year-old named Jujiro Goto, who came from a shuttered electrical firm in Tokyo. The business model is simple. Japan's factories and buildings are filling with imported electrical equipment. That equipment breaks constantly. Makita fixes it. Every repaired motor is a factory that keeps running. Every replaced transformer is a building that keeps its lights. Within a few years, the shop has a reputation. The motors Makita repairs last longer than the ones his competitors touch. For 43 years, that was the entire company. Through the 1920s and into the 1930s, the business grew, but it did not change. Makita Electric Works repaired motors. It sold transformers. It serviced the electrical infrastructure of a rapidly industrializing nation. The Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 devastated much of Tokyo and Yokohama, destroying factories, snapping power lines, and wrecking electrical equipment across the region. The demand for skilled repair work intensified. Makita's shop survived and kept working. In September 1935, the company exported electric generators and motors to the Soviet Union. It was a small order, but it proved the repair shop could manufacture components reliable enough for a foreign buyer to trust. In December 1938, Makita Electric Works incorporated formally as Makita Electric Works Inc. Initial capital was 180,000 yen. The workforce had grown to 94 employees. Then, the war came. By the early 1940s, Japan was at war across the Pacific. Industrial production shifted to military priorities. Makita's factory in Nagoya sat in one of the most heavily industrialized regions of Japan. And Nagoya was a primary target for American bombing raids. By 1944, the raids were devastating the city systematically. Factories were burning. Residential blocks were flattened. In April 1945, Makita moved the entire operation to the smaller city of Anjo, roughly 30 kilometers south. It was an attempt to survive the bombing. The war ended 4 months later. Japan's economy was in ruins. Its factories were destroyed or seized. Its supply chains were severed. Raw materials were scarce. Makita Electric Works went back to doing what it had always done, repairing motors, selling transformers, keeping the lights on. The shop was still in Anjo. Anjo would remain the company's headquarters permanently. It still is today. A repair shop. No products, no brand, no intellectual property beyond the skill of the people doing the work. Just a team that had survived an earthquake, a world war, and a bombing campaign, fixing other people's machines in a country that was rebuilding itself from nothing. Most business stories begin with a visionary founder, a breakthrough product, and a sprint to market. Makita's story begins with 4 decades of patience. And those 4 decades are the reason the company survives what comes later. Because the decades spent repairing motors were not wasted time. They were an education in exactly one thing: how electric motors fail. Think about what that means. Before Makita ever designed its own motor, it had already opened, diagnosed, rebuilt, and improved thousands of motors designed by someone else. The company did not learn motor engineering from textbooks or from importing foreign designs. It learned by standing over workbenches with burned-out windings and worn bearings and cracked housings, figuring out what went wrong and how to prevent it from happening again. When the time finally came to build their own tools, they already knew every way an electric motor could die. The man who made the pivot was not Mosaburo Makita. It was Jujiro Goto, the 17-year-old who had walked into the shop on day one. By the late 1950s, Goto had spent over 4 decades inside the business and risen to become president. Japan's post-war economic miracle was underway. The country was transforming from rubble into the world's second-largest economy. Factories multiplied. Construction exploded. Roads, bridges, railways, office towers, apartment complexes. Japan was building at a pace that rivaled anything in modern history. Every construction site needed power tools. Every factory needed motors. Every building needed electrical infrastructure. The demand for reliable equipment was enormous. And Goto looked at that demand and made the single most important decision in the company's history. In 1958, Makita introduced its first proprietary product, a portable electric planer, Model 1000. It was a woodworking tool, compact and powerful, designed for professionals. And it worked, not because Makita had suddenly become a brilliant product design company overnight, but because the motor inside the planer had been informed by 43 years of understanding exactly how electric motors behave under stress. The repair shop had not been a delay, it had been a training ground. By November 1959, Makita had transitioned fully to manufacturing electric power tools. The company began exporting immediately, first to Australia. The electric planer was followed by drills, grinders, circular saws and sanders, each one built on the motor expertise that 4 decades of repair work had embedded into the company at a cellular level. And then, in March 1963, 4 years after entering the power tool business, Makita achieved something that almost no rapidly expanding manufacturer ever achieves. The company became entirely debt-free, no loans, no bonds, no obligations to any bank or creditor. A company that had pivoted from repair work to manufacturing, expanded into export markets, and built a new product line from scratch, had done it all without accumulating a single yen of net debt. This was not an accident, it was a philosophy. To appreciate how unusual Makita's financial discipline is, you need to understand what every other power tool company was doing at the same time. The American model of corporate growth in the power tool industry has followed a consistent pattern for the past 50 years. Borrow money, buy brands, consolidate manufacturing, cut costs in the factory, make it up on volume, repeat until the balance sheet catches fire. Stanley Works merged with Black & Decker in 2010. Then it acquired Craftsman from Sears in 2017. Then it acquired MTD, a maker of outdoor power equipment. Then the integration problems began. In 2022 and 2023, Stanley Black & Decker reported billions in inventory write-downs. The stock dropped over 50% from its 2021 peak. The company announced factory closures and layoffs of thousands of workers. The CEO who had led the acquisition spree was replaced. Tektronic Industries, a Hong Kong-based conglomerate, bought Milwaukee in the mid-2000s. Then it acquired Ryobi's power tool licensing for the North American market. Then, Rigid. 3 brands. 1 parent company, 1 retail partner. Milwaukee is the professional brand. Ryobi is the consumer brand. Both sit on the same Home Depot shelf, 3 feet apart. Manufactured by an organization whose corporate headquarters is on the other side of the planet from the tradespeople who use the tools. Sears held the Craftsman brand for 90 years. When the company collapsed, it sold Craftsman to Stanley Black & Decker for $900 million. The CEO of Stanley Black & Decker said publicly that the products had been left to devolve over time to the point where they were not the high-quality, respectable products they once were. That is what he paid $900 million for, not a tool company. A reputation half destroyed that someone else had built. Porter Cable was acquired by Pentair in 1993, then sold to Black & Decker in 2004. The engineering was stripped. The factories were consolidated. The brand that had built the first portable belt sander and the first helical gear circular saw became a name on a box containing tools designed by a committee optimizing for cost reduction. This is the pattern. Buy a brand. Extract the reputation. Move production somewhere cheaper. Ride the name until the professionals notice. Then let the brand decay into a consumer product and start marketing a different name to the pros. Makita did not do any of this. Makita operated on the principle that a company should never spend money it had not yet earned. Growth was funded from profits, not from borrowing. Expansion was measured in cash flow, not in credit lines. The company grew at the speed its own revenue allowed, and not 1 yen faster. Every new factory, every new subsidiary, every new market entry was paid for with money the company had already earned by selling tools. No leveraged buyouts. No outside investors demanding quarterly growth targets. No private equity sponsor sitting in a boardroom calculating which factory to close to improve margins by half a point. In 1970, Makita established its first overseas subsidiary in New York. By the late 1970s, it had subsidiaries across Europe, in Australia, in Southeast Asia. By 1985, it was manufacturing tools in the United States, a strategic response to anti-dumping tariffs between the US and Japan. Instead of fighting the trade dispute from Tokyo, Makita built a factory on American soil. The tools were made where they were sold. The dispute lost its leverage. Every step of that global expansion was paid for in cash. And that patient, self-funded discipline created something that no amount of borrowed capital can buy. Independence, the freedom to make decisions based on what is right for the product and the customer, not what is necessary to service the next debt payment. If the financial discipline was the foundation, the battery platform is the cathedral built on top of it. In December 1978, Makita launched the 6010D, the first power tool in the world to use a nickel-cadmium battery. Previous cordless tools used older battery chemistry that delivered less power and shorter runtimes. The nickel-cadmium cell was denser, more consistent, and more rechargeable. Makita did not invent the battery. But Makita was the first to put it inside a power tool and sell it to professionals. In February 2005, Makita introduced the TD130D, the world's first professional use power tool powered by a lithium-ion battery. Earlier lithium-ion tools existed in consumer form. Makita's was the first designed, tested and priced for full-time professional use on construction sites. Lithium-ion batteries were lighter, held more charge, and did not suffer from the memory effect that plagued nickel-cadmium cells. A tool that ran on lithium-ion could be recharged at any state of discharge without degrading the battery's total capacity. For a professional who charged a battery during every lunch break, this was not a convenience. It was a revolution. The platform that followed, called LXT, became arguably the most important battery system in the power tool industry. An 18-volt lithium-ion slide-style battery that could power drills, impact drivers, circular saws, grinders, reciprocating saws, sanders, routers, jigsaws, planers, vacuums, fans, and dozens of other tools. One battery. One charger. An entire ecosystem. By 2026, the LX platform powers over 300 different tools. It is the largest single battery cordless tool system in the world. A carpenter who buys one Makita 18-volt battery can use it across every category of tool the company manufactures. And here is the detail that matters more than any specification sheet. The battery purchased in 2005 still fits the tool released in 2026. Think about that for a second. 21 years of backward compatibility. A professional who invested in the ELK system when it launched has never been forced to replace a working battery because the company decided to change the connector. The batteries bought during the second Bush administration still snap into a tool bought during the second Trump administration. That decision cost Makita engineering flexibility. Newer battery architectures could have delivered marginal improvements in weight or charge speed. A clean break from the old platform would have given Makita's engineers a blank sheet. They chose not to take it. Makita chose compatibility over marginal performance. It chose the relationship with the professional who had already invested in the system over the press release that would come from announcing something new. Compare that to what the rest of the industry does. DeWalt has transitioned battery platforms multiple times. Milwaukee's original V18 system was replaced by M18, stranding early adopters. Every platform change is a forced repurchase for the professional. New batteries, new chargers, new tools. The old equipment becomes dead weight in the van overnight. Makita also developed a second platform, XGT, a 40-volt system capable of doubling to 80 volts for applications that needed more power than two 18-volt batteries could provide. But the XGT system was designed to sit alongside LXT, not replace it. The chargers are cross-compatible. The systems coexist. Makita did not strand its existing customer base to chase a higher voltage number. It built a bridge, not a cliff. Makita added another layer of intelligence called Star Protection Computer Controls. A communication chip inside the battery and a matching chip inside the tool exchange data in real time, monitoring temperature, current draw, voltage, and charge state. If the tool overheats, the battery reduces output before damage occurs. If the battery is being drained too fast, the controller intervenes. The system protects both the tool and the battery from the operator's urgency. It does this silently, without the operator knowing, thousands of times a day on job sites around the world. This is Makita's version of what Toyota calls Kaizen. Not a dramatic breakthrough announced at a trade show. A quiet, compounding refinement applied across millions of units over decades until the gap between Makita's system and everyone else's is too wide to cross in a single product cycle. If you are finding this interesting, consider subscribing. I cover stories like this every week. The kind of business history that explains why entire industries work the way they do. There is one acquisition in Makita's history, and the way they handled it tells you everything about why this company is different. In 1991, Makita purchased Sachs Dolmar GmbH, the German chainsaw manufacturer founded by Emil Lerp, the man who had built the world's first gasoline-powered chainsaw in 1927 on the slopes of Mount Dolmar in the Thuringian forest. Dolmar had been building chainsaws for 64 years. Makita had never built a gasoline-powered chainsaw. Instead of spending a decade developing engines and chains and bars from scratch, Makita bought the company that had invented the entire category. The acquisition was strategic and deeply intentional. And what happened next was the opposite of what American conglomerates do when they acquire tool brands. Makita kept the Hamburg factory running. The German engineering teams stayed in place. Dolmar's chainsaws were manufactured in Germany by the same people to the same standards under new ownership that had no interest in gutting the operation for short-term profit. When Stanley Black & Decker bought Porter Cable, it stripped the engineering and consolidated the factories. When Titi bought Milwaukee, it moved production. When Sears sold Craftsman, the new owner admitted publicly that the products had been allowed to devolve. The pattern in the American tool industry is acquire, extract, consolidate, and let the brand coast on whatever reputation remains. Makita bought Dolmar and left it alone. The Hamburg plant continued producing chainsaws for decades. In 2015, Makita began transitioning the branding from Dolmar to Makita, painting the chainsaws teal instead of orange. But the machines still came from the same German facility, built by the same engineering teams, to the same standards. The acquisition was treated as a partnership, not a strip mining operation. That same year, at the end of the 1980s, Makita had done something equally revealing. The company commissioned Giorgetto Giugiaro, the legendary Italian designer behind the DeLorean, the Volkswagen Golf, and the Maserati Ghibli, to design 3 power tools: a circular saw, a grinder, and a drill. The tools were exhibited at the World Design Exposition in Nagoya in 1989. A Japanese power tool company hiring the world's most famous automotive designer to shape its products. It was a statement. Makita did not see power tools as disposable industrial commodities. It saw them as engineered objects worthy of design attention. Objects that professionals held in their hands for 8 hours a day deserved the same design consideration as the cars they drove home in. That philosophy still shows up in the tools today. Makita uses magnesium housings where competitors switch to plastic to save pennies per unit. It publishes parts availability for products years after they leave the production line. It offers brushless motor rewind service. These are not marketing differentiators. These are engineering decisions that only make sense if the company actually believes the tool should outlast the job. Makita's critics are not wrong that the company has weaknesses. And they are real. Milwaukee has executed one of the most impressive brand transformations in the tool industry over the past 15 years. The M18 platform, the relentless red marketing, the trade-focused product launches, the social media presence. Milwaukee's brand energy among young tradespeople is enormous. Walk onto a job site in any American city and count the red tools. Milwaukee has made tool loyalty feel like team loyalty. It is an identity, not just a purchasing decision. Makita has not figured out how to compete on that axis. The company does not sponsor influencers. It does not run aggressive social media campaigns. It does not name its tools with aggressive military-sounding designations or produce cinematic product launch videos. The teal branding is recognizable but not exciting. In a market where a 22-year-old apprentice electrician chooses his first cordless platform the same way he chooses a sports team, Makita's understated engineering-first approach can feel invisible. DeWalt has the contractor event circuit, the yellow and black visibility on every job site, and the marketing budget of Stanley Black & Decker behind it. Milwaukee has Titi's relentless product cadence, sometimes launching dozens of new tools in a single year. Makita's product releases feel measured by comparison, almost quiet. The tools arrive. They work. Nobody holds a press conference. The XGT 40-volt platform, while technically capable, has been slower to gain adoption than Makita expected. Professionals who have invested in LX for 2 decades are hesitant to add a second battery system to their vans, even one that is cross-compatible. The result is that Makita's higher-powered tools compete against Milwaukee's M18 fuel and DeWalt's Flex Volt lines with less market momentum behind them. And there is a broader tension that Makita faces as the industry shifts. Power tools are increasingly sold as ecosystems, not individual products. The battery platform locks you into a brand. The app connects to the tool. The accessories are proprietary. The trade-in program discounts the next purchase. The ecosystem is designed to make switching painful. Milwaukee and DeWalt have invested heavily in this ecosystem logic, building walls around their customer bases that get higher with every new tool purchased. Makita's ecosystem is deep but quiet. 300 tools on one battery platform is objectively the largest system in the industry. But depth is not the same as noise. And in a market where the loudest brand often wins the first-time buyer, Makita's approach requires the customer to discover the value rather than being told about it. But here is what Makita's critics tend to miss. In an industry where Titai owns Milwaukee, Ryobi, and Rigid, and where Stanley Black & Decker owns DeWalt, Craftsman, Porter-Cable, and Black & Decker, Makita stands alone. It builds its own motors. It designs its own batteries. It manufactures its own tools in its own factories in 14 countries. It answers to its own engineering culture, not to a conglomerate's quarterly earnings target. When Stanley Black & Decker needs to show Wall Street that revenue is growing, it acquires another brand. When Titi needs to impress investors, it reports unit growth at Home Depot. When Makita needs to invest in a product line that will not generate returns for 5 years, it invests. Because there is no private equity sponsor calculating which factory to close, no activist investor demanding a spin-off, no hedge fund manager staring at the parking lot underneath the factory and wondering how much the real estate is worth. Consider what happened to the companies that did not have this independence. General Motors went bankrupt in 2009 because quarterly earnings mattered more than long-term positioning. Sears collapsed not because people stopped needing tools, but because a hedge fund manager named Eddie Lampert bought the company for its real estate and bled it for a decade. Between 2011 and 2016, Sears Holdings lost $10.4 billion. In October 2018, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. 132 years of American retail history closed by the end of 2025. 5 Sears stores remained open in the United States. 5, down from more than 3,500 at the peak. Craftsman survived for 90 years on the strength of a lifetime warranty and the trust of 3 generations of American homeowners, and was sold for parts because the company that owned the name no longer had the cash to keep the lights on. Arthur Barrows had bought the Craftsman trademark for $500 in 1927. Sears sold it for $900 million in 2017. On paper, the single greatest brand appreciation in American retail history. In practice, a confession. The company had spent the previous decade extracting everything valuable from the brand and shipping the factories abroad. The buyer paid for the reputation that was left because the company was about to disappear and the reputation was all that could still be sold. Black & Decker destroyed its professional reputation in 10 years by chasing consumer volume. A tradesperson does not want to use the same tool a homeowner bought for $40 at Walmart. The association with cheap consumer products eroded the brand's professional credibility so completely that Black & Decker had to resurrect a dead brand, DeWalt, just to get professionals to take its tools seriously again. DeWalt was not a new company. It was a name Black & Decker had acquired in 1960 and relaunched in 1992 specifically because the Black & Decker name was no longer credible on a professional job site. Every one of those failures followed the same logic. Short-term financial decisions overrode long-term product decisions. The quarterly number became more important than the tool. The shareholder became more important than the person holding the drill. Makita has had exactly one set of priorities for 111 years. Build the motor correctly. Build the tool around it. Sell it to professionals. Fund the next tool with the revenue from the last one. Do not borrow. Do not sell. Do not merge. Do not let anyone who does not understand electric motors make decisions about electric motors. The company that started as a 2-person repair shop in Nagoya, a 21-year-old founder and a 17-year-old worker fixing broken motors in a country that had barely discovered electricity, is now a $5 billion corporation manufacturing tools in 14 countries. Same headquarters in Anzhou, the city it relocated to in 1945 to escape American bombing. Same independence. Same engineering culture. Same commitment to the person holding the tool. Makita does not make headlines. It does not announce revolutionary breakthroughs at press conferences. It does not run Super Bowl advertisements. It does not sponsor combat sports or monster truck events. It does not produce cinematic reveal videos with fog machines and laser lights. It builds power tools. It has been building power tools, or the motors that power them, since 1915. It has been doing it without interruption, without acquisition, without private equity intervention, and without abandoning the professionals who depend on its products. The reputation was not built by a founder's speech, or a marketing campaign, or a corporate strategy devised in a boardroom. The reputation was built by the tools themselves. One at a time, on job sites in 50 countries over the course of 111 years, by professionals who picked up a teal-colored tool, used it until it should have broken, and found that it had not. That is not branding. That is 111 years of an electric motor repair shop that never forgot what it means when a tool fails in the middle of a job. And 111 years of making sure it does not. Whether that patient, independent engineering first model can hold against the marketing spend of TT and Stanley Black and Decker is a genuine open question. Makita has been underestimated before. It has been told its approach is too slow, too quiet, too conservative. And it is still here, independently owned, independently operated, and independently profitable. While the companies that called it old-fashioned have been bought, sold, merged, and restructured so many times that tracing their corporate lineage requires a diagram. Betting against the quiet company is a pattern in this industry. It has not worked yet.